Hey, Brook Scholars, welcome back to Remote Learning with me, Mr. Scott. How are you? Happy Tuesday. Tuesday. Well, do you remember what we were working on yesterday? We had a new exciting challenge as readers. We were thinking very carefully about a particular genre. We were thinking about historical fiction. Absolutely right. Remind me, what is historical fiction? Right. It's a story that's made up and it's set a long time ago. Now, it's really important today. We're going to read another example of historical fiction. It's a different story. It's not about Ben and Sarah panning for gold in a stream. So, if it takes place in a different time, we're really going to have to stop and think about what life is like for the characters living in that particular time, in that particular place. Setting is something really, really important when it comes to understanding historical fiction. So, let's get started and see what's happening in today's story. The King's Riddle. Ooh, I love everything about that. So, kings. So, right away, I'm starting to think about kings, royalty, monarchs. I'm thinking about princesses. I'm thinking about kings and queens. And in a time, a long time ago, I'm thinking maybe about castles. I'm thinking about dragons. All of these things. And then, of course, it says riddle. Now, I know what a riddle is. It's kind of like a joke, it's kind of a word, kind of mind game that you play and you try to work out what the riddle is, what the answer to the riddle is. So let's find out what's the king's riddle. And then remember, because it's historical fiction, we're really thinking carefully about when and where the story takes place. Let's do this. The king's riddle. There was a kingdom long, long ago. It was ruled by a king who loved riddles. Once every year, the king made a new riddle. He gave a prize to the person who could solve the riddle. There was a baker who also lived in this kingdom. Everyone agreed that he baked the finest breads. The baker had almost everything he needed except for a horse. If the baker had a horse, he could sell his fine breads from one end of the kingdom to the other. One year, the king made a new riddle that puzzled everyone. I will give a prize to the person who can solve my riddle, the king said. Whoever wins will have the pick of one of my strongest horses. He then drew a line down the middle of the courtyard. Make this line shorter without erasing any part of it, the king challenged. People came from far and wide. They looked at the line and squinted at it. They even put their noses to the ground and scratched their heads. How can you make a line shorter without erasing any part of it? The people in the crowd asked each other. Asked each other. Sorry, I lost my point. There we go. Paragraph 7. Yes, that's right. Some of the villagers tried, however. The dressmaker kicked dirt over the line to hide it. The farmer poured water over the line to make it disappear. None of these attempts worked. And the people went home disappointed. Everyone was puzzled about how to solve this new riddle. A week passed, and nobody had any ideas, any new ideas. Then one day, the baker came into the courtyard with a bag of flour. Your Majesty, the baker said to the king, I can make your line shorter without erasing any part of it. The baker opened his sack of flour. He poured out a line of flour right next to the king's line. The line the baker made was longer than the king's line. Now, good king, the baker smiled, your line is shorter. The people were amazed. The king laughed and clapped his hands. You have won the prize. I give you a horse of your choice. The baker was thrilled. Now he could sell his breads from one end of the kingdom to the other. Oof. Now, time to stop and think. And we're going to start this retell, my friends, by thinking carefully about the setting, because this is an example of historical fiction. When you're reading historical fiction, you need to think very carefully about when and where the story takes place. So it tells us right there in the beginning we are in a kingdom. It didn't mention much by way of a castle, but a kingdom. It's includes, a great big area of land, and it is ruled by a king. And what do we know about this king? Well, he's got lots and lots of fine horses. We know that. We also know that he loves riddles. And so every year he kind of challenges the people in his kingdom, which is kind of a fun idea, I think, for a king. Not a bad idea. Here you go, work on this. So he gives riddles every year, and then whoever solves the riddle, gets the answer correct, wins some sort of prize. And so there was one year in particular that the king proposed a challenge, a riddle that people were having a lot of difficulty with it. He drew a line or made a line in the courtyard of his kingdom, and he said the challenge is that you need to make this line shorter without erasing any part of it. So lots of people came by because they wanted to win one of the king's strongest horses. They were really, really excited about this. And it mentioned the dressmaker, and it talked about people pouring water over the line to make it shorter, but that erased it. So that fit the challenge. And then someone covered it, kicked dirt on it, I believe was what it was. But no one could figure it out. And an entire week, 7 days went by, and still no one could solve the king's riddle that year until the baker came along. Now, he had a really, really strong motivation. Do you know what the motivation was for the baker? What did the baker want? Right, he wanted a horse. Why did he want the horse? Did he want to go riding around on it? No, that's absolutely right. He wanted to use the horse to travel to different areas, different parts of the kingdom to sell his bread, which everyone agreed was completely delicious. And now I'm hungry for bread. Anyway, so there he goes. He goes over to the king, and he's got a bag of flour, and he pours out the flour in a line next to the king's line, so he didn't erase any part of it. And he said, "Good king, guess what? I've done it. I've solved your little riddle. I've made a line that is longer than your line, and so your line is now shorter than it was when you compare it to the line that I have drawn on the courtyard with the flour." And the king was very, very excited, and the baker got a horse. The baker was very, very excited, and that was the it. That was the end of it. Good stuff. Okay, so now remember, historical fiction, yesterday and today, we have learned that if you're going to really understand a piece of historical fiction, it's very, very important for you to think about where and when a story takes place. So, next time you're reading historical fiction, make sure that you include the setting when you're stopping and thinking and retelling the story. Your job, my friends, as always, is to answer the questions at the bottom of this page. Answer all of the multiple choice questions. Again, do that on paper. Name, date, title, left-hand side for the MCs, the multiple choice questions. And then don't forget to answer the short answer questions at the bottom of the page. Really looking forward to seeing your work up there on Seesaw. Don't forget to expand that picture out as much as possible. Make it fill the whole screen so it's really easy to read your work. Okay, I'm already wearing glasses, so I don't need more of a challenge. Okay. All right, my friends, thank you so much. Go forth and have a wonderful day in your kingdom. And I will see you back here tomorrow. All right. See you then, my friends. Take care from Mr. Scott. Bye.